G'day everyone, welcome to our special Spotlight on Sports episode of Either Side of Nhill. I'm Ben.
And I'm Kristy, and today, yep, you guessed it folks, we're talking all things sports. But before we get to our very special VIP guest, Ben, who's currently waiting in the green room, let's have a bit of a catch up.
Sure.
But before we get to our very special VIP, let's talk about our incredible numbers of listeners worldwide for ESON. Yes, Either Side of Nhill 2022. We have a recap. Buzzsprout have just shared all of our listener stats with us, Ben. And do you know that we have got listeners in Japan, Italy, New Zealand, USA, Australia. Wow. We've got fans everywhere. And just to name a few, that was just to name a few, FYI. We had over 800 downloads of our podcast last year.
That's so good. Oh my God, that's fantastic.
I'm so excited, and that is fair and legitimate excitement in my voice. I was really, really super pumped about that. So last year we recorded over 550 minutes.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive.
You're really breaking down the stats.
Pretty impressed with myself and us. So that was pretty good. What do you reckon, Ben?
I think that's awesome. And I'm impressed by our output. We pumped out 14 episodes in our first year. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's great. I was really happy to see that we had overseas listeners. I'm like, did Mum go to Japan and New Zealand? I don't think so. So it's got to be someone other than Mum. So that's pretty cool. No, that's fantastic. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, super cool. I just want to also give you a bit of a holiday update, Ben.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so you know I was going to Phantom of the Opera.
Yes, you told us last time.
I went to Phantom of the Opera last weekend, had a girls' weekend in the city, and that was amazing. Really, really good. If it comes to Adelaide or Nhill, go and see it.
Have you seen it before? Is that the first time you've seen the show? Oh, yeah, and so you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I wasn't impressed first time round, but second time round it was better, yeah.
You saw it twice?
When I was, I don't know, about 30 years ago.
Oh, okay, of course.
And then I saw it again just recently, and I liked it much more. So, it was very enjoyable. It was a really good production, super fantastic, amazing singers, cast, everything was just fantastic. So,
wow.
I've had a bit of a Melbourne sort of centred holiday break, Ben.
Yeah, okay.
Yesterday I spent at the Australian Open.
Wow, okay. You went in for the day session?
Yep, went in. It was 39 degrees in Melbourne. It was stinking hot. And then we had a cyclone later on in the day. So it was really good to get a bit of everything from Melbourne. Thank you. Kind regards. Breaking news, Rafa is out of the Australian Open. Yep, you heard it here first.
The hell? He's hurt himself.
Yeah, he's gone. So I am Team Rafa. So I'm quite disappointed. But also, Ben, I did something in Melbourne that I've never, ever done before. And I wonder if you have been here to Pellegrini's, Collins Street, Melbourne. It's an icon for coffee and pasta. Top end of Collins Street.
No, I haven't done that. We may have to ask our guest if he's been to the to Pellegrini's. But no, I have not been.
Yeah, really, really cool. So next time when you're in Melbourne, it's a must.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so really, really good. I was there on the weekend and, just had also a really enjoyable 3 cups of coffee in about an hour.
Wow. Okay. And then you just sprinted through Melbourne for the next 5 hours.
Did an express walk around the city. But overall, had a great Christmas break and also, did a bit of swimming, bit of cycling and a few walks, a few laps around the tan.
Wow.
But did you hear about the vegetable oil spill in Port Phillip?
No.
Bay, right, Port Phillip Bay?
No, we don't get Port Phillip Bay news here on a regular basis. But
there was a massive vegetable oil spill. And I was wondering why when I was coming home, my beach towel and my white T-shirt and stuff was all covered in yellow gunk.
Okay. And what happened? Yeah,
it's disgusting. Just a disgusting comment for you there.
That's horrible. Yeah, I know. That's revolting. And then he went to the beach and came home dirty.
Came home looking like that, person that swims the English Channel, covered in all that fat.
You're wondering why the water was warm.
I'm wondering why I was swimming so fast everywhere.
Insulated. Oh, yuck. Okay, so someone's dropped a whole bunch of oil.
Yeah, but anyway, I think it's cleaned up now. So, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
What about you, Ben? Did you have a good break?
Yeah, well, look, we did actually. A little bit more low key. You went full tourist. I'm very impressed
Did.
with that.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we had a really nice Boxing Day here. Very quiet Christmas, but Boxing Day we had some family. My brother and who, obviously cousin of yours, you may be familiar, and his family, and also some extras. My sister-in-law's mum and her partner came as well. So we had extras for Boxing
Mm.
Day at our house, which was really nice. It was super hot, but we got our son a table tennis table for Christmas, and so we set that up in the shed. So the shed's a bit of a games room area. So we had
Oh,
some table tennis tournaments, and also we have a mandatory water fight with water balloons every Christmas.
oh,
And
fun.
whether you want to be part of it or not, it's not really your choice. You're part of it, whether you like it or not. So and it always gets out of hand. People are sneaking hoses and buckets, and
Yeah.
everyone's soaked by the end of it. So that was heaps of fun. And then we went to the shack. Sarah's family have a shack down on the York Peninsula, which is just a beautiful part of South Australia, and it's really nice. Right on the beach. Spent some time with family. Sarah's brother was down from New South Wales, so
Mm.
cousins were playing and having a ball. So we had a really nice, relaxed Christmas, and we went into the city on Saturday night for the opening race of the
Mm.
Tour Down Under. So what they did is they raced the women's and the men's on the same night. The men have now had a break while the women's three
Mm.
stager took place, and so we went in. We unfortunately missed the women's. We couldn't get there early enough, but we saw Caleb Ewan win the men's race,
Yeah,
and
that
it
is
was
so
just
cool.
so good. I've actually got goosebumps talking about it because Simon Gerrans was commentating, so we were
Yeah.
on the home stretch where he was in the box, and the speakers were just booming out the commentary, and the crowd were just going crazy because he came from fourth, and he was quite a fair way back during the race, and weaved his way to the front, and the team got him there, and he was in fourth place for the final 100 meters and just took it out. It was just
Oh
incredible.
God, I just love it so much. And your video and your photos are fantastic. We've just shared them across the social media platforms and really, really good footage, Ben. Well done.
Yeah, yeah, no
Yeah.
worries
I
at
was
all. That
so
was filmed
jealous when
on.
I saw that.
You wanted to be there, yeah.
Oh
That was
yeah.
just on my phone. That was fantastic. No, we loved it, and Reed loved it, and it was really, really cool. So it makes you love your city when you see things like that
Oh
going on. So
yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's been really hot this week, but it's cooler at the moment. So like the tennis players, the cyclists have just been sweltering. The women will have been, but the men will get some milder weather.
They're
So
amazing.
yeah.
I can't believe it. Like yesterday watching the tennis, it was before they shut the roof and the extreme heat policy came in and they
Mm.
suspended play for 3 hours. It was I think they suspended at 35, 36, something round about that, but it was just so hot. And the people that are in full sun, they
Oh
I
my
don't I
god.
don't know how they do it. Anyway,
Yeah, it's
um,
unbelievable.
fun
But
fact: one year I think Boris Becker had to be put on a drip
oh, did he?
post match.
Wow, because it was just so hot. They wouldn't be
Mm,
used to the used
yeah,
to the heat. Wow.
yeah.
But just to finish off on the Tour Down Under, it is a sports episode, and we're going to get right into sport very, very soon. But Grace Brown did win. She won the stage, but also won overall. So Grace Brown is a winner of the women's TDU, which
Oh,
is
good one.
really cool, and it's been fantastic. There were so many kids in the city on Saturday night just loving it and getting right into it. So I think. It's been a bit low key for the last couple of years, and now it's back in full, and I think it's just so far been a massive success. So, oh,
Did you get any free stuff, Ben?
you got something else to do there, Christy.
Sorry.
Oh, you've got your AO fan.
Did you have any free stuff?
Any
there,
free
Ben?
stuff? No, they
Any
had
free merch?
we tried to get a drink bottle from the cyclists, but Christy's holding up all their free AO merch
Yeah.
for the listeners.
And the Bondi Sands sunblock. We got plenty of that as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
fantastic.
I think I did get on TV too, so that will be on AOTV. That was
Awesome.
yesterday. Yeah, super
So,
fun. Sorry, I do have it's good how I can bring it always back to me, isn't it?
it's a special skill, and I don't know how you do it, but you do it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's seamless.
Sorry, not
Back to
sorry.
you. What
All
is it this
right.
time?
Well, I think this is just a perfect segue to open up the door of the
Yeah,
VIP green room and
please.
let in our special guest because he is eating all the M&Ms and the Powerade. I can see him again. Oh my
I
god,
think it's Audi Powerade, so it's okay. Doesn't matter.
Audi.
Yeah.
Not the car. One. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, January is a brilliant time for sport in Australia, Ben, as we've just been talking to. We've got the Tour Down Under in Adelaide and Melbourne, we've got the AO. The place is absolutely buzzing. It's alive with big events and just so much activity.
Yeah.
So to keep that buzz real today, ladies and gents, we are very excited to welcome to the ESON podcast, Mr. Paul Bowell. Paul is a colleague of mine, and every possible chance I get, I chat to Paul about all things sports. He has no say in that deal, and I see him running whenever I come along.
Good thing he's drinking Powerade then. He needs it. Get away from
I ask Paul a million questions and we have the best conversations. So sit back and relax because you are just about to be blown away by his incredible sports knowledge and also...
Not to mention his awesomeness.
Couldn't get it. Jesus. Thanks, Ben.
That's okay.
So Paul is a PhD candidate within the Sports Innovation Research Group at Swinburne Uni. And Paul's research topic seeks to understand how women Australian rules footballers experience digital self-tracking and what impacts these interactions have on the players' selfhood, identity making, and I can't read that word.
Corporeality.
Body.
Body.
Their body.
Paul has obtained a Bachelor of Arts with honours, first class, specialising in sociology from the Australian National University. His honours project investigated the compliance processes of employees who were digitally self-tracked in their workplace. Paul has also lectured at Deakin and at La Trobe Uni, teaching different sociology, and sports management units. Oh my God.
Wow.
Paul.
Oh my gosh. I feel so underqualified right now.
I'm such a loser. That is some intro.
Hey, go on, Paul.
Yeah,
welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for that lovely and elongated introduction. Feel a bit embarrassed.
Don't feel embarrassed. I mean, you've achieved so much. Why not put it out there? Come on, I feel like I might need to finish that accounting course I started 20 years ago.
I think I'll have to change corporality to body for when I see my bio.
I've never seen that word before. I've never read it. I couldn't even get it out. Thank you so much. I'm such a dunce.
Oh, it's all good. It's great to have you on the show, Paul, to talk all things sport. I'm really excited. It's lovely to meet you. There's so much that's been happening around the world in sports and big moments and some highlights for 2022 and already 2023. And we want to chat to you about all of those things. But would you mind telling us a little bit more about your PhD and what you're working on and why you chose that particular subject?
Yeah, most definitely. So as Kristy said, my sort of background was looking at what's called datification of society, so where people interact with technology, with my honours, looking at how employees use self-tracking devices, so anything from like digital tracking watches to sort of swipe cards and that. So going into my PhD, I wanted to sort of combine that sort of knowledge, but also with my other love, which is sport. So sort of I moved from Canberra to Melbourne to do my PhD. So AFL was a logical sport to pick up, and I'm really, really passionate about women's sport. That's the other real passion that I have is really sort of advocating for much more inclusion and greater awareness and support of women's sport. So, I was really interested in continuing on looking at how women footballers experience their digital self-tracking, so their GPS trackers that we see on the back of their jumpers. I've got no real interest in the numbers they actually produce. It's more how it makes the players feel, because we're very driven in society by data, as Kristy demonstrated with your wonderful metrics that your podcast has produced. Yeah. But quite often we don't question the data and we don't sort of think about how it makes us feel. So the AFLW football is a really interesting cohort. They're a semi-professional group. So we just had Daisy Pearce retire today. So Daisy Pearce was one of the elite footballers who would probably be mostly professional, would be at a high level. But we have a lot of amateur footballers who come in and they're just there to really run around, get a kick. And they're all lumped in together, and the way in which their metrics are produced are really different, but they're sort of all read the same. So I'm really interested in how they experience it and how a really elite athlete would experience having their data shared with athletes that aren't at that elite level and how that makes everyone feel. And it can really impact how, if you're an athlete that has to is a nurse who does a 12-hour nursing shift and then goes and does their training and then gets your metrics shared with everyone else, and you're not going to be at your best, but those subjective aspects aren't included. So I really want to work out how that makes the players feel, and then if we can make any changes so it's a bit more inclusive, so that the performance monitoring benefits the players and the clubs, but then also makes the players feel good about themselves as well.
That's really cool. I really hope that your research helps to make some positive changes in the game. That's really great. Really interesting.
Thank you.
So onto some sports topics, if you're ready. The font of knowledge of sport that you are. We're going to hit you up for some info.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know much about this one, but there was an NFL footballer that had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about this?
So I wanted to sort of come in and talk about some good things and some not so good things about sport. And this story here was not a very good story, but it has a happy ending. So you just have to stay with me for a second.
Oh, good. All right. Cool. I like that kind of spoiler. Yeah, that's all right.
So this happened the NFL's into the first week of the finals started this week. So this happened over the New Year's Eve period. It was the second last round of the regular season. And the Buffalo Bills were playing the Cincinnati Bengals. I was actually watching it at home live.
Oh,
and,
were you?
Yeah, I was, yeah. And
sorry, I interrupted.
So the one thing about NFL, which is a bit similar to AFL, but much worse, is players get injured all the time. There's a real issue with injuries, and it happens all the time, and everyone's fairly blasé about it. They just cart them off, they put a blue tent over them, and then the game goes on. Well, this was about 5 minutes into the first quarter. So a Buffalo Bills defender, Damar Hamlin, he just quite an innocuous tackle on the Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver, T. Higgins, and he got hit in the chest, and he fell over, and he stood up, and then he just laid straight back down, and he had a cardiac arrest, and he nearly died on the field. So for 10 minutes, he was on the field, and they were the doctors were performing CPR, and they had to get an ambulance out. And I've never seen anything like it. Like, you see sometimes when there's a bad injury, you see the reactions by the players. And I remember a couple of years ago, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, he broke his ankle quite badly. And the players you could see in their faces, they were upset or distressed. But the reaction of the players, like, they looked like they were watching someone die.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So about 15 minutes, 20 minutes after this happened, Damar was taken to hospital. And within probably 20 minutes, the game was cancelled.
Wow.
And what's interesting is the NFL has got not a great track record of player welfare. So the NFL was the first sport that sort of did any research into sort of the CT concussion problems, and they actually hid all the evidence from the players. So this was a while ago. So they've got a track record of not really caring too much for the players. But the interesting thing about this was there was an instant reaction from the whole NFL industrial complex to where football became completely secondary. No teams really spoke about the next week. The league didn't talk about rescheduling the game. And it was a real focus on Damar Hamlin's health. There was an outpouring of from the community. He has a charity that he supports. And regular people set up a GoFundMe page, and they raised about $4 million for this charity. Wow. So it really showed that even in probably you could say the NFL is the most cynical, capitalist-driven sport in the world, that there's this real community of sport. And the real happy ending is that so what happened was the league decided to cancel the game. It never got played.
Okay.
And then the next week, they just went on with the last week of the season. So the Buffalo Bills, the way the NFL kicks off is that a team, a bit like rugby league, a team kicks the ball to the other team, and then the player will run the ball back. And probably 95% of the time, the player might run the ball back 5 or 10 meters or yards and get tackled. And maybe once a season, they'll run it back for a touchdown. And believe it or not, the first play, the Bills player caught the ball and scored a touchdown.
Wow.
If you look it up on my Twitter feed, I actually shared the clip, and you can see it. You can just see it. If you just look up the Buffalo Bills' first touchdown of Week 18, the crowd reaction the players' faces, like it just shows what sport is about and how much that meant to so many people. And it was so much more than just scoring 6 points. And and the really good story is that Damar Hamlin's okay now. So he's been discharged from hospital. And before the Buffalo Bills final game, which was on last weekend, he actually was able to go back to their facility and actually be able to see the players. So,
wow.
So there's been no talk about him actually coming back and playing NFL, but it's really about, he woke up and the first thing he said when he woke up, because he was put in a induced coma, was, did we win the game? And the doctor said, you won the game of life, Damar. So pretty much
unbelievable.
So I think that was a really, really wonderful story to show the power of sport and just the community that sport can bring together in with the NFL being quite a cynical sort of sport. So I thought that was a real highlight and a real happy sort of ending.
Yeah, and it also puts into context that people won't always put it above everything else as well. Yeah. So it brings people together, but it also, people can make that distinction when it's needed. Wow, he would only be quite young, so that's a lot. That's a massive thing to have happen to you at such a I guess a young age.
There hasn't really been any explanation. I think it was a contact injury. So 2018, I think it was, Christian Eriksen, who's a Danish soccer player, he had a cardiac arrest playing in the Euros. And he had to be brought back with a defibrillator. But I think it ended up that he actually had an underlying heart condition where I think Damar Hamlin, it might be a contact injury where his chest has hit the shoulder pad of the player.
Oh, no.
And it's something like, it's almost like an electric shock's almost happened where it's been knocked out of its socket.
God, it's just incredible.
It hasn't really been confirmed yet.
Wow.
Okay, we'll get back to you. We'll get back to you on that one, Paul. Yeah. That'll be the next edition. On to another happy ending. Since we're talking about happy endings, let's talk about Argentina, World Cup winners.
Most definitely. So the World Cup happened in November, December. Controversial World Cup being hosted in Qatar.
Yeah.
But as we have with most of these sort of controversial tournaments, as we have with the last World Cup in Russia, is the football sort of wins out. And I think that if we're just focusing on the football, like the final has probably already been spoken about as the best World Cup final ever. It was so good. I watched the game live, and then I think it was Christmas Eve. My wife and I sat down and watched it again, and it was so good.
Oh, did you?
You
didn't go for love, actually.
No, we went for Messi. Went for the love of Messi.
The love of
actual love. Yeah.
For anybody who doesn't know, Argentina beat France on penalties, and the game was 3-3. So Argentina dominated for the first 60 minutes, took a 2-0 lead, and then France got a penalty back and made it 2-1. And then within another minute and a half, Kylian Mbappe scored a wonder goal to 2-2. So then it went to extra time, and then in extra time, Argentina. It's actually what Argentina did for most of the tournament. So even when Australia played Argentina was sort of hanging on at the end. Australia scored a goal with about 15 minutes to go, and they seemed to fade out. But then in extra time, Argentina probably had the better of the extra time, and Messi scored with about 5 or 6 minutes to go. Wow. But then again, France came back and got a penalty, and Mbappe scored. But Argentina won on penalties, and I think talking about the great sort of reactions, if you've seen some of the footages of Argentina and Buenos Aires after the celebrations, there was a drone footage.
Unbelievable.
Drone footage, if you can look that up, of just all the people, and
yes,
there wasn't much safety regulations.
No,
us was going around. There was people falling off bridges and things like that. But I think it sort of really shows, and we've seen it a bit in Australia. Like I think back to when Richmond won their first flag in 2017.
Yeah.
And
when was that? 2017.
Yeah, and the scenes at Swan Street. But this was just something else. Like I don't think, I can't imagine. I guess if Australia won the World Cup of football, like soccer, I don't think would replicate those sort of scenes.
No, well, we don't have the population either, do we? I mean, they have a huge population. And poor old Pele, he passed away.
Yeah. So that was sort of coupled in a couple of days later or a week later. Pele passed away, and it was all sort of serendipitous around the South American sort of feel, because during the World Cup, it was the year anniversary of Maradona passing away as well.
Oh, okay.
So it's been just about a year either side where we've lost Maradona and Pelé, which are arguably two of the greatest players, and probably with Messi winning the World Cup, Messi's probably sat alongside those two players as arguably the third best player in the world. So, but yeah, there was a great outpouring of just what Pelé meant to football and the things that Pelé did was just incredible.
Absolutely.
I feel like we've got a bit of a football theme going on here.
We have a bit of a football theme.
We have, because when we were chatting about all the things we wanted to talk about, we also wanted to talk about the football at Amy Park here in Melbourne and Melbourne Victory, which we saw in this short period of time. We saw some of the best of Australian football, with Australia doing so well at the World Cup. And then a couple of days later, we saw the worst of Australian football, Melbourne, with the fan behaviour. I don't know if you're across that one, Ben.
Oh, absolutely. We saw it here and I was horrified by I think there's the infamous footage now of the bucket being thrown at the player who I think got concussion as a result. And I think it's absolutely, it's really sad. And we'll get your thoughts on it in a moment, Paul, because it's always these kind of things can be the catalyst for a whole discussion around, you pick a stereotype around soccer and they will all come out. And then people will say, focus on the people, not the game, and all of these sorts of things. So, and I don't follow soccer, so I just see these incidents as news clips rather than in the greater context of the game. So what were your thoughts, Paul, on that whole week, the bittersweet of Australia and Melbourne Victory?
I completely agree, Ben. Like it happened only a day or two, I think, before the World Cup final, and you sort of had the best of football with Australia's performance at the World Cup. Like, it was the best performance we've ever had at the World Cup, and then you had that fantastic final, and it's something which you hope. These things only happen every 4 years, and we'll talk about it a bit later, but we've got such a great 6 months of football coming up in Australia with the Women's World Cup being hosted here. It should have been a real springboard for the next 6 months to a year of just, really publicising how great football is in Australia, like soccer is in Australia. And for that to happen, it was really sad. And it brings back similar sort of things that happen. So I sort of wanted to sort of touch on, the actual violence isn't sort of related to traditional forms of what you would think of with soccer violence. But once again, it brings back these notions of how we sort of view football or soccer in Australia, and I always think that soccer is very much it's like I say, it's an othered sport. Like, we look at it as an ethnic sport. We don't see it as an Australian sport, which is really interesting because it's a colonial sport. Like, it was created in England. England say, it's coming home, so they have sort of some of these traditional ideas that football was created in England. But for Australia, it's very much seen as an ethnic sport, where cricket and rugby league and rugby union are seen as colonial sports. Because
and AFL, of course, yeah.
Yeah. And because Southern Europeans and Eastern Europeans, they brought soccer to Australia. And soccer's history it has a rooted in an ethnic history. So the way the A-League was actually created was response to ethnic problems in crowd violence in the old National Soccer League. So before the A-League was formed, there was a lot of different teams. So South Melbourne, you had different, like Adelaide United, and they all were linked to different ethnicities. So you had Croatian, you had Macedonian, you had Greek ethnicities, and these groups, they have long ethnic histories, and they tended to have some crowd violence. So the A-League, when they disbanded the National Soccer League, they formed the A-League, and they actually brought in a rule where it was illegal for any team to have any sort of ethnic connection, any sort of ethnic colours in their flags, which is actually really, for me as a sociologist, it's really interesting because it's completely against Australian multicultural policy.
Yeah.
So while what happened with Melbourne Victory had nothing to do with like ethnic violence, it once again just shows this othering and this idea of how we're really in Australia, we're uncomfortable with the way soccer fans behave. And I've got no doubt that what's actually happened in that instance is you've got right wing agitators that are looking for a protest.
Yeah.
And then they infiltrated that situation. But just the way that the response, the way in which the fines were handed out, there was $500,000 of fines to Melbourne Victory. And it was really, we need to acknowledge that these sort of, that we have like crowd problems, crowd violence in other sports.
Yeah.
Like earlier last year, Carlton Richmond, there was problems in the AFL where there was fans that were fighting and there was a serious incident there. So I think I really try and take a more critical view, and when something like that happens with Melbourne Victory, like there has to be punishment, there has to be sanctions, but I get a bit worried that we keep on maybe coming down a bit harder on soccer because of that sort of history that it has, and we need to really critically look at the way in which soccer is framed ethnically in Australia, and then it says something about how we look at ethnicities and multiculturalism in Australia ourselves, which I think is really interesting. So
and it's probably another subject for another day, but noting that a lot of them are young men as well. So you think, okay, what does that say about masculinity in modern society? It's kind of like it's an outlet where it's okay to have those behaviours, and people sort of get permission to do it there. So they think, okay, I can't do it anywhere else. This is the only place I'm going to do it. And then, it all sort of kicks off from there.
Well, that's a really interesting point that you have, because we're about to host the Women's World Cup of football in Australia. And 2 years ago, England hosted the Women Euros, so the European Football Championships. And 2 years before that, Europe had a diverse men's Euros in which England hosted the finals and the semi-finals. And England traditionally, they had a lot of problems, a lot of like football hooliganism, you would say, in their town squares and things like that. And there was actually a noted difference that when England hosted the Women's World Cup, how like family friendly and how different the atmosphere is. And I think that's a really interesting thing for us to observe with the Women's World Cup coming to Australia, and wonder, like, what does that say about women's sport? What does that say about the fans that follow women's sport? What does it say about what are some fans wanting different from men's sport as well? So I think they're all interesting questions. And my colleague who you've had on, Dr. Casey Simons, is far more qualified to talk about these sort of things. So maybe for a follow-up podcast, you could get
maybe we should get both of you on and have a panel discussion. That might be fun.
Yeah.
Do you guys get along? You're not going to argue, are you, on our show?
Oh, no,
It's
no.
a very friendly show.
We get along. We get along smashingly. She's a West Coast Eagles fan. That's the only problem.
Don't hold that against her, though. She's gorgeous.
Yeah, she's fun.
Super interesting. And you just touched on the Women's World Cup, which is coming. What month? When does that start? Because
it's in June. I think June and July.
Because I heard on the radio today they have sold 500,000 tickets already.
They have
for that. So go figure. And then the Matildas will be playing in Melbourne as well. I think there's one match scheduled for for the Matildas in Melbourne. So that's exciting. But they must be just going, this is going to be an awesome event.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Because actually just today, Casey and I was at Casey's desk and she's got the whole fixture out, and Casey's working out which games she can go to. And I've got tickets to a couple of games. I've got tickets to the Australia-Canada game, which is in Melbourne, and then I've got tickets to a round of 16 match. But it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be huge. I don't think we had the T20 just before COVID. We had the women's T20, and we had a huge crowd for the final, but this is going to just obliterate that.
Seriously?
Like this World Cup Australia's not going to know. For a women's sporting event, like Australia and New Zealand have not seen anything like it. And this is the thing that I love about women's sport. And I think women's football is a really good example of why I'm so passionately advocate for women's sport. So we're at the highest level in international football. I don't think there's any difference if you watch women's football or men's football. Like the women's football, if you watch the US football team play, they are amazing. They are as good as any men's team. And it shows that with, investment, support, backing, and I've got to say that women's football has got nowhere near the backing or the support of men's football. But compared to other women's sport, probably tennis is probably the only one, and maybe in America basketball. But the performance levels are so high, and I think everyone in Australia, if you're just a casual football fan or soccer fan, and you haven't seen any of the women's football, you're going to be blown away with the level of the quality of the football.
Wow.
And Australia is hopefully a bit of a chance, so we'll see what happens.
How good would that be?
Well, we'll see. Yeah. So I think we're a chance to get to the quarterfinals, but after that, we'll see. Maybe a bit of hometown support would be good.
Yeah, that's super exciting.
We have some of the best players in the world. So we've got Sam Kerr playing.
Yeah, of course.
We have Ali Carpenter, she's coming back from the injury, but she's a fullback, and she plays for Olympique Lyonnais, so Lyon in France, and they're considered the best team in the world. They're like the Barcelona of women's football. So
wow.
They play in the Champions League final every year. So
you actually work with a couple of amazing female footballers, don't you?
I do. So I've got two colleagues. So I've got Olivia and Sarah. They're professional footballers who are playing in the league down from the A League just in Melbourne. So they're about to start their season, I think, in March, I think it is. So, we're really, and I've also got another colleague who's a former Olympian as well. So we're a sports innovation research group, but we have sports like current and former sports people as well. And we have Vahid, who's another PhD candidate, who's one of the top table tennis players from Iran as well. So so
I know he listens. Hi Vahid, he'll be listening in. We mentioned him on our last. Oh God, you're right there, Ben.
Sorry, I just scared the dog.
Yeah, Vahid, he listens in. He'll be pumped. He's got back-to-back comments on the podcast. So we've talked a lot about the sport and a lot of soccer, football. Let's chat Australian Open.
Yeah.
My pick has just been bundled out, as everyone does. I hate it when they get bundled out. So I am Team Rafa. He's out.
Wow.
You guys, you got a bit of a pick. Who do you think's going to win it now? The Joker, Nole?
Oh, well, I think Djokovic will probably win it. He might not. Who knows? Anything's possible, but he seems to be very much in form, and it feels like his head's kind of right as well. I mean, it was strange because he couldn't come into the country last year, and there was all this controversy, and I didn't actually see his match, but tennis fans tend not to forget things. And I thought Medvedev was going to get booed the other night, and he didn't. He got massive cheers. So, people are willing to move on. I do think Djokovic is probably the hot favourite, but it's so exciting watching the Aussies at the moment. The Aussies are having a really good run. And there was a 5-setter last night. You weren't there for the night session, Kristy.
You're talking about Jordan Thompson?
It went for 5 hours. It went for 4.5 hours, and it was a 5-setter.
Yeah, we were there when it was started, and we could just hear the fans going crazy outside, like the cheering, and like we couldn't get in, we couldn't see. It was on an outside court, and we could hear the excitement, and that's just unreal. I absolutely love that. So, and he gets the crowd going too. There's a couple of young Aussies. I think that they may have played today. I haven't checked the scores yet, but. Oh, unreal. Absolutely love the Australian Open. But I reckon it will probably be, Daniil Medvedev versus the Joker in the final. And either one of them, I would love to see Daniil win. He's a great guy. I think he was sort of a bit misquoted or taken out of context last year with one of his comments, but in brackets, it was probably true, close brackets.
Well, and his body language at the presentations, and that was all a bit peculiar as well.
Yeah, but they were saying that Joker might be booed because, Australian Melbourne, people have long memories, like you said, Ben, but he didn't, and the he's been like doing some really great stuff. He did really well in Adelaide, and now in Melbourne, he'll probably breeze through. So I'm a bit sad that Rafa's out. Paul? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, sorry, Kristy. Sorry.
I think that the Joker, I think he'll win. But interesting you brought up Medvedev. Both Djokovic and Medvedev have really tough years for different reasons last year. Like I know some of the Russian players were banned for quite a few tournaments, so they'd both be really fired up. But I think the Djokovic, if I was Djokovic's coach, I'd just tell him that Scott Morrison's going to present the trophy, and that'll motivate him.
And bring a vaccination with him while he's there.
And I think Swiatek, you can't go past Swiatek.
No, she's
was your pick, wasn't it, Kristy?
Yeah, I had that down too. Stop cheating. Yeah, so good.
Well, she's world number one, and she's also an incredible player. And so did you see her interview the other night? She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I'll just stop talking. She was talking about Ash Barty and how much she loves Ash Barty and how sad she was when she retired. And yeah, it was really sweet.
That was really, really good. Yeah, I think they're my picks as well. So I reckon it should come down to those two guys, but I don't know on the women's side. Could be roughy. I mean, it's kind of wide open. It's just wide open. So and they've had a lot of players pull out, etc. So injury or pregnancy, maybe Osaka's coming. Yeah. So,
well, I just want to say before the AO Australian Open, the Adelaide International was on, and being this side of Nhill, I just want to say that I did actually that's our that's been around for a long time, Memorial Drive, and they've done a lot of work on it in the last few years, and it just looks so good on TV, and you drive past it because it's right smack bang next to Adelaide Oval along the River Torrens there. If you're familiar with it, it's a really beautiful part of the city.
Stunning.
So I just loved watching Adelaide, and it was getting lots of coverage and lots of interest because it's a pre-Australian Open tournament, and it's really gathering momentum.
Well, that was gathering so much momentum. They had two tournaments, Adelaide 1 and Adelaide 2. They ran two tournaments.
Yeah, it was. There's tons of. I mean, there's so many tennis courts. It's really it's really grown. And I did actually years ago. It used to be called the Rio Men's Hard Court. Rio was in the Undies brand. Remember Rio Undies? If you're a kid, you used to have Rio Undies, and they sponsored the men's hard court. And I actually ushered. I couldn't be a ball boy. I was too late for the ball boy selections, but I got to usher in the crowd. So I was showing people to their seats and going, can't come in yet.
Did you, Ben? That's pretty exciting.
I did. And the final was Stefan Edberg versus Jim Courier.
Oh, wow.
It was incredible. And it was a really good match. And Stefan Edberg won, if I'm not mistaken. So that was some pretty vintage tennis going on there.
That's unbelievable. I absolutely love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was 1993 or something like that. Anyway.
I remember the Adelaide International was like, there was the first tournament that Lleyton Hewitt won when he was like 16.
Correct.
Or like that.
Yeah.
The boy from Adelaide comes in these tournaments.
I've got to tell you, when I was in the city on the weekend, I saw Lleyton Hewitt.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, he was coming out of the Western Hotel in Burke or Collins, whatever it was. And anyway, I was with my friend. I'm like, oh my God, there's Lleyton Hewitt. There's Lleyton Hewitt. Yeah, so he just jumped into a car and took off. So, yeah, but all around the city, you see the AO cars cruising around, and it was really fun when we were at the Australian Open coming down Punt Road and down Swan Street. There was heaps of AO cars, and like saying to the kids, there'll be a player in there, check them out, because all the windows are kind of tinted, but, so I think Rafa's in that car. So it was really, really cool.
Hey, Paul, do you know why I think Tony Roach and Lleyton Hewitt were in the box for, was it Millman the other night?
Okay. Yeah.
Do you know what their involvement is? No?
I don't know, but I think Lleyton Hewitt's he's the coach of the Davis Cup team for Australia.
Yeah.
So I think he manages to with that role, I think he seems to be with a lot of the...
He does, yeah. And I think that there is some really strong connection there. And then, I don't know, it's not coaching, obviously, but there's some sort of mentoring. Because back in 2020, when I went to the Australian Open, this is so weird, but Mum and I went to watch John Millman play on an outside court, and you can sit anywhere in one of these outside courts, but anyway, we just happened to sit right behind Tony Roach and Lleyton Hewitt and his son Cruz and the physios, and we were right behind them. So they obviously still stick with him and support him, so whether it's just for a support mechanism or something like that, but really... Yeah, they're right behind him. He's a great guy.
He looks like he's a pretty relaxed, fun guy.
Well, I reckon we have had a really good sports episode. Really appreciative of your time tonight, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us on Either Side of Nhill. Has it been a good experience for you?
I've had a blast. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'd love to come back.
Really? Excellent.
Would.
Well, once you become a friend of the show, you're technically a regular. So you just need to keep the phone handy because we could call at any moment, and we might need to get you back. So
exactly.
make sure you're at the ready with your sneakers on to run to the laptop if we need to chat. But it's been so nice to meet you, and you clearly know so much about sport, and I love how you look at the social aspects and the wider story rather than what's just happening on the field and in front of our eyes. So we'd love to get you back and talk to you some more sometime this year. And it sounds like that was a yes. So we'll lock that in. And
get me and Casey for the round table.
That'd be fun.
That's it. Yeah, that'd be great fun. Thanks so much for joining us, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Well, Kristy, that just about wraps it up for our first episode of the year. We've kicked off. It's like the middle of January, and we've already punched out an episode. Our work rate continues. I tell you what, you forget Messi. Look at us. Look at us go.
Oh, Ben, yeah, we are really thankful to our first VIP guest, Paul, for joining us tonight. We have a bunch of ace guests lined up for 2023, and the next episode will be a cracker.
Yes, ever.
Folks, I am travelling to Adelaide. We are recording face-to-face for the first time ever. It's going to be fun. Potentially, it's going to be super long, unedited. Podcast could be 4 or 5 hours in length.
And the funny thing is, we're cousins, but we've never actually met. So it's going to be good to meet in person for once. We've never met. It's going to be amazing.
All right, peeps, you've been warned. All right, that wraps it up for tonight. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on Either Side of Nhill.
See you later.
See ya.
See ya.
See ya. No, you say goodbye. You hang on.
Hang on.